Hey everyone, Strangers123 here. Today with something a little bit different to my normal replay cast, with the announcement that it's going to most likely be tier 10 ranked coming up in the next season of ranked battles. I wanted to cover my top 4 picks, one ship for each class, for the best ship in general to achieve rank 1 as efficiently as possible. Before we get to that though, there's two ways. Well, there's technically only one, and that is to win your rank 2 battle that gives you rank 1 star. You need to win that battle to obtain rank 1. Technically, that is the only way to obtain rank 1. But there are two strategies for trying to obtain rank 1, or the ability to reach rank 1. One of them being high win rate, but not necessarily high star saving rate. And the second one being to try to save as many stars while still keeping as good of a win rate as you can possibly push. And after I cover my top 4 picks, if you just want the... Well, what would it be? If you just want the quick end of it, watch the first few minutes. I'll try to cover this as fast as possible. After that, I will cover the individual niches of every single ship in tier 10, and perhaps help you make a more decisive decision, more accurate, more educated decision on which ships you think you would like to pick for your tier 10 rank, based on my opinion. Remember, these are my opinions based on my experiences and what I think of a ship. They may not necessarily coincide with your opinions and your playstyle, so take everything I say here with an instant repair bucket worth of salt, because that's about as much as I produce on an hourly basis. So let's get straight to it. With aircraft carriers, in my opinion, I think it is the Hakuryu. There are basically 2 loadout options. Don't mind the anti-aircraft. This is from me testing stuff. My captain's also in full AA. But there's basically 2 loadouts, and that is 2-3-2, where you basically try to play for more replacements on fighters and torpedo bombers, not caring so much about your utility with the dive bombers. And there is the top hull for the Hakuryu, or top setup for the Hakuryu, the 2-3-3, giving you 8 squadrons you have to manage, slightly fewer replacements distributed over your fighters and torpedo bombers to gain that additional squad of dive bombers. But still, the most important thing here are your 3 unique torpedo bomber squadrons that are not constructed of the tier 8 squish that the Midway gets, although Midway is slightly easier to play. So it is definitely a very close call, in my opinion, with the tier 10 aircraft carriers. If you know how to handle yourself, the Hakuryu, in my opinion, is definitely the superior choice. Much better utility compared to that of the Midway, and with a very important advantage, these cycle times. Check this out. This is without torpedo servicing expert, I believe. Let's see, I think I need to actually go with the aircraft button here. We'll see the takeoff time, well, the cycling time. 22 seconds required to prepare for takeoff. That's without torpedo servicing expert, like I said. I think it goes down to 16 or 17 with it, though, which is massive compared to the Midway. Even with full servicing, that's still 32 seconds. The time it takes to get the first and second squadron of the Hakuryu up compared to Midway means that the Hakuryu can have the faster aircraft. Check this out, 136 knot cruise speed of these torpedo bombers. Fun fact, Graf Zeppelin gets 135, and that is 2 tiers lower, of course. We share the same torpedo bombers with the Lexington, so that's not really a big surprise. Compare that to the massive 164 knots on the Hakuryu. You can just quickly see how much faster Hakuryu can get strike to the middle of the map, or to wherever you need it on the opening stages of the game, and potentially sink an enemy destroyer before the Midway even has their fighters anywhere near this area of combat to be able to defend. With the cruisers, in my opinion, it is the Des Moines. One of the major reasons for this being how incredibly easy it is to obtain experience for the Des Moines in saving your star. On top of that, you have 10.6 kilometers surface detectability, the incredible reload on the main battery, 5.5 seconds stock, and if you want to run with the reload upgrade, I think it goes down to 4.8. 9.9 kilometer radar, and devastating firepower against anything that is within your effective combat range, where you can hit targets. A destroyer quad at 7-8 kilometers is going to have a really bad day really fast, with 5.5 reasons per minute coming from each gun barrel to be somewhere else. On top of that, you have the anti-aircraft defense, and of course this version is very heavily spec'd for anti-aircraft. As you can see, I do have to run the AA upgrade and AA range, but 56-second radar combined with defensive AA giving you really good resistance for any aircraft carriers that want to come at you. Just be careful of Midway AP dive bombers. and you'll be basically able to contest all enemy units on the sea and in the air, on top of having very high XP modifiers to save those stars when you do get unfortunate enough that your team is not able to deal with the enemy team and the enemy team defeats you. You may just have a slightly higher chance of saving your star. In the destroyer lineup, we have, in my opinion, the Z52, giving you the most amount of utility. But before I get onto a quick word about the Z52, the gearing, in my opinion, is a very close runner-up. And if there's a lot of aircraft carriers, or you believe aircraft carriers may be in the next game, I personally recommend the gearing because it gets defensive AA. But the Z52 does not have too shabby AA defense if you fully spec for it. These numbers are not too bad. The range definitely is not bad as well. However, if an enemy aircraft carrier comes straight for you, you're going to be in trouble. You don't have a panic button, you're not the world's most maneuverable ship, and you're still a reasonably big target. But with a big size, you don't get too bad concealment, 6.1 kilometer. You also have a smoke and a hydro combination, meaning you, if you do get spotted, to just smoke up, activate the hydro, and if the enemy destroyer is getting closer to you, or you are sailing towards him and he was sailing towards you, there is absolutely no way that destroyer is not going to get himself spotted by your 5.88 kilometer hydro acquisition of enemy ships. This means is that things like the Yueyang at tier 10, which is also a very good pit, and the Shimakaze, if it does get the buff, you will be hydroing these before you actually surface detect them. On top of giving you incredibly good torpedo protection, so if you do have destroyers in smoke, you can easily help protect these destroyers. And like the Lol Yang at tier 8 was a very strong pick, I definitely personally believe preemptively that the Z52 is also equally a very strong pick when there are no aircraft carriers around. You do get very fast torpedo reload. I don't believe I have any torpedo reload spec on this. 90 seconds, that's 1.5 minutes reload. Sure, each torpedo does somewhat potato for damage, 14,400, but 1.4 detectability range on these torpedoes is quite okay. 10.5 kilometer range is good enough for the job you need them to do. Just be careful, you cannot camo torp a Moskva without getting into the potential range of his radar, but that is about it. 10.5 is enough to torpedo at a Des Moines without him being able to radar you back with 9.9 kilometer surface detectability range. And now, onto the battleships. I don't currently have one in port, but I personally, just like a lot of teams in clan battles, would also lean towards the Montana. You get solid anti-aircraft, especially if you spec for it, giving you reasonable protection against aircraft carriers. Your armor profile overall is also very good. There is an additional splinter deck here, not visible in the lineup here. This basically protects you against AP dive bombers of the midways. They're just going to be doing penetration damage. Unless, of course, they drop them on the very front or back end of your ship, in which case they're just going to be doing overpens. However, you are very unlikely to get Citadel by the AP bombs, meaning that you have very good protection there. And AT bombs, in the long run, would be doing better because they kill your anti-aircraft. On top of that, you get 1, 2, 3, 4 main gun turrets of 16-inch Mark 7 guns for 13,500 damage per shell at maximum. 3 guns per turret for a total of 12 barrels on a single broadside, giving you a lot of potential throwaway, and these guns are highly accurate against cruisers and destroyers. And realistically, these are the targets you want to wipe out, especially the destroyers, meaning that if you do get to hit a destroyer and you do get to ruin his day with even if it is just a lot of overfence, that's still a lot of lasting damage that destroyer is not going to get back, and it is going to make the life of your destroyers much better. Close contenders in this one, honorable mentions, Grosser Kurfürst, if it does become the good old ranked battles kind of death blob meta, then the Kurfürst, a secondary battery of 11.6 kilometer range, can be definitely useful. Same for the Republik, although the Republik does fall short on the armor. Having a very quick look at the armor of the thing, you'll see that it is 32 millimeters of armor, absolutely everywhere. Cruisers will melt this health away under concentrated fire. And to make up for that, though, you do get a baguette boost, but your concealment's not the world's best. You spot it from far away. Your AA is actually not bad at all, although you do need to be careful that your redundancy on these guns is not very good. If they do get HE spammed, we can see the amounts when we hide the arm layout. You can see 1, 2, things like that, 3, 4. These are incredibly easy to kill. There's only 12 of them, and they're mostly all centered around the central area of your ship and superstructure, with 2 at the back here like the Des Moines, but I wouldn't count on that. So with that, my top few picks for each ship in the class 4 tier 10 rank. Now let's have a look individually at each of the ships and what I think is positive and what I think is negative about them. This video is, of course, with this going to drag on for quite a long time. If you just wanted my quick look and opinion, I suggest that you close this video right now. Leave a comment in the section below if you believe that I am, either right or a complete Dummkopf, and that you have a different opinion. Do leave them in the comment section below. Discuss. You're welcome to agree, disagree. If you like this video, press the thumbs up, subscribe to my channel. I do plan on posting more content like this. For those that want to have a look at a lot more detail of the individual ships and perhaps something you may or may not have known, a little bit of trivia about them in World of Warships, let's get straight to it. Let's have a look at the Japanese. We already pretty much covered our Kuryu, but a few additional things to note. If you do want a spec for it, this AA is absolutely insane. It amounts to over 1,000 with manual AA and a 2.6 click plane modifier. If you take the Captain Skill manual anti-aircraft, and you fully upgrade the anti-aircraft, 7.2 kilometer range of devastation, although I would not recommend you do this, but that will melt pretty much any aircraft squadron that wants to have a go at you. Other than that, it also has very good concealment, 13.7 without concealment expertise, unlike the Midway, which basically needs concealment expertise to push it down to the same levels. That's 4 captain skills not used for anti-aircraft. Midway AA is not bad, but without manual anti-aircraft, this AA is basically useless, and you're actually vulnerable to being sniped, because your defensive AA only gives you 25% additional bonus to these Bofors guns, and combine the total DPS of that, multiply that by, well, in this case, 1.25, and then the 1.3 click bonus. You don't actually get that much, not against tier 10 aircraft, and it's not enough to actually help you defend your own ship, so do be careful of that. If you don't have manual A on a Midway, you could find yourself struggling against incoming snipes, although you still have the panic button, but if they decide to come back to finish you off, they're easily going to be able to do that. Although you do get decent torpedo protection, you still have a good chunk of health to work with. Since we're talking about capital ships, let's have a look at the rest of the battleships. I think I pretty much covered the Montana reasonably well. Armor layout, you may think, oh, it's only 409mm, and right there is the Citadel, but we need to remember that the Citadel area of the armor, if we hide everything else, is actually quite well sloped. Although the area underneath not so much. If you slip a shell into the water and hit this tiny little bit of plating here, you do risk being Citadel. I also mentioned the AP bomb resistant, and of course accurate guns with a good AA, so I don't really think there's too much more to cover here. 37% torpedo bulge is not bad at all either, but I wouldn't be counting on that to tank torpedo damage. In general, you want to try to avoid taking torpedo damage, and the maneuverability stats of the ship definitely aren't really superb, but they're not really horrible either. You kind of expect that from a ship this size. Yamato really only, in my opinion, comes in as the 46cm gun lol pen machine, going right through 32mm of standard armor, but equally your armor layout is very poor in return. So if you do display your armor to an enemy at this kind of an angle, basically the general rule of thumb is if you can shoot your rear turret, the enemy can shoot your Citadel. If they can plant a shell right through this, at this angle, it's not going to auto-deflect. It's going to go right through the 32mm of armor, impact the 350mm plating here, and chances are it's going to go clean through with a rather big size of that, and of course your broadside Citadel plating. Other than that, however, you get some of the best HE resistance, in fact the best HE resistance on the main deck. Hindenburgs will not auto-lol pen this with their high explosives. They will go through this though and pretty much everything else. You need to be careful about broadside tanking HE because this is actually 32 instead of 57. It is not like the deck. This will get penetrated by basically every single HE spamming cruiser at tier 10, so do keep that in mind. Also, if you are being AP spammed by something like Hindenburg or any cruiser targeting specifically this 32mm plate, this is actually going to result in a lot of damage taken because it's a rather big ship. Shells are going to hit that arm and detonate inside for full penetration damage. Also, your shells, they're actually rather fast and reasonably accurate, but The traverse speed of these turrets is rather slow, and the ship's maneuverability is rather, in my opinion, on the weak end. 27 knots speed means that the ship is going to struggle reacting to situations, but as long as you keep the enemy in front of you and you keep the secondary spam and whatnot going, you definitely are going to have a good time, as long as you don't get flanked, as long as you don't get torpedoed too much. But best torpedo protection in the game, 55% torpedo bulge, means that if you do take torpedoes on your bulges, chances are they're not really going to wipe you out immediately. You're still going to have a bad day, but you're not going to find yourself dead like if you were, for example, in a Conqueror. Speaking of the Conqueror, the best concealment of the tier 10 battleships, this thing really is more like a cruiser in its ability to get close to deal damage, but 32mm of armor everywhere means that chances are if you do take an HE shell hit, you aren't getting penetrated by that HE shell, and you don't actually have that much health to play with to begin with. What you do get instead is the Royal Navy press T for stats to replace ship, and, well, you just, instead of repairing your ship, you just get a new one. It doesn't work so well if you get constantly spammed by armor-piercing, AP bombs, and the torpedoes, and you definitely don't have good torpedo protection. 28% is on the lower end of the spectrum as tier 10, although Yamato's 55% really is the upper end of it. You do have some reasonable lull point protection, though. You can see this plating over there makes it a lot harder for anyone to just shoot right through that and into your citadel, which is very poorly armored on the Earth warship. If you do find yourself in a bow-on-bow with a Yamato and he just shoots you there, chances are you're going to get wiped. Although a Yamato shoots the bow of anything except Gnossokurfus, it's going to wipe it. So what do you get? Good concealment, which means that you can get up and close to the destroyers at the start of the battle, wipe out an enemy destroyer, or do significant damage to him before pulling away laughing, replace your ship, and act as if absolutely nothing actually happened to you, and continue combat. And that's definitely going to be, in my opinion, one of the more important things to be able to do, and I'll get to that when it comes to the cruisers and why I didn't give an honorable mention to a specific cruiser. But that really is about it about the Conqueror. I'm sure everyone really knows what's up with it. Oh, one thing to mention, the AA is very strong actually. The numbers here are incredibly high, 200 plus, it's a 500 odd DPS on the Bofors. However, these are all 40mm guns. These are also Bofors, by the way. The problem with them, you can see, is that the mountings, for the most part, except some spread over, but it's not the world's biggest ship, mostly all central. And you can see the super heavy damage dealers, these things, they're all rather centered on the superstructure. You take 80 damage, you lose your AA. You get 80 bombed, you lose your AA. And these dual-purpose guns give you an amazing tier 4 levels of AA. Yay. I wouldn't count on them. Even if you full respect for them, I would not count for them. Tier 4 is a bit... Tier 4 is a bit on the low end. Tier 5 levels of AA. You can get similar levels of DP on a tier 5 ship. I'm not actually joking with you. Like, look at the Kido, for example. It gets almost that number. It's like 50 something. So yeah, like even I think Shimi gets like 48 or something. Kava gets about this. This is destroyer levels of dual purpose. Put it this way. It's slightly higher, but don't count on your AA. Is what I'm trying to say. So with the other tier 10 battleships, it really is the French, and then I'll cover the German. Baguette armor, made of, well, wet baguettes. 32, 32, 32, 32, 32, 32 everywhere, and that's really the theme of this ship. You get hit by any shell, it's gonna damage you. Well, any HE shell, it's basically going to damage you. It's gonna do full damage. You can put your sizable superstructure as well. The concealment is not the world's best, but instead you get basically the baguette boost. Press that button and off your ship goes. Without the baguette boost, it's basically the same speed as a Montana. You do get better rudder shift time though. But with that baguette boost, you do get a 37% torpedo bulge, which is about as average as it really gets. You also get some decent enough armor internally. Let's have a look at the armor plating once we're giving user interface. Let's be 400mm of main plating and have a look at that angle of it. On top of the inside of it having a kind of a turtleback armor like the Germans. 70mm not as good as the German 150, I believe, or is the 120, we'll get to that shortly. But that, on top of the citadel protection behind it, means that you are actually a very well protected ship in terms of your citadel. Just do be a little bit careful in case people try to slip shells underneath this, but again, don't count on it. Only really battleships can do that at super long range, and that's if you sit stationary trying to plink with your forward guns. But that's not really that useful compared to some other lower tiers, like, for example, the Richelieu, with all your guns facing forwards. In this case, you don't. Your guns are now for the front and for the back, meaning 50-50 distribution. Still the same as something like a Friedrich Gross or a Tirpitz Bismarck. But what you do get is fast reload on the main guns, and this is important because if you spec for reload on these guns, and the 431s, this is quite important because they will lull pen the Zhao's 30mm armor, for example. Same for the Henri, meaning that those cruisers' armor, they don't actually resist your shells. You just need to hit them on anything except for the main belt, and you're going to deal damage to them in some way, shape, or form. But other than that, be careful of your HE armor. If you do get focused heavily, you can rather quickly go down, except of course if you pull a baguette boost and rapidly advance in the opposite direction. That's really it about the Republic. Oh no, I forgot to mention the anti-aircraft. It's actually quite alright. 306 at 4.5 is, well, it's almost the same DPS as a Minotaur and the Moine, you just get it at slightly shorter range. On top of having a reasonably solid dual-purpose armaments complement on it. Interestingly enough, your 5-inch guns have more range than your 6-inch guns. But that's not really too big of a deal. You need to spec for manual AA to make good use of the anti-aircraft, though. So with the final one, the German Grosse Kurfürst, the biggest of them all, with over 100,000 health and very strong armor. Check this out, 380 plus 150 total back, and of course, 45 on the Citadel. That's basically every German battleship in the game from tier, I think even 4 onwards. 50mm of HE resistance on the deck, which means that only a Hindenburg spamming HE is actually going to be going clean through that. Everyone else will need IFHE to penetrate this deck with high explosives. And high explosive spam you definitely can into, because these secondaries have 7.7 base range. This is important, because it gives you basically an extra cruiser strapped to your side. And these 12.8cm guns, a little interesting trivia, is that they have caliber by 4 for HE pen. So if you spec IFHE on the Grosse Kurfürst, these secondaries will all go clean through with 32mm of standard armor plating. And if you do run to something like a Baguette, something like a Conqueror, and they're within your secondary range, you can go ham, absolutely ham on that health bar. It's just like specking IFHE on a Bismarck and Tirpitz. These things will absolutely melt Armageddon. This thing will absolutely melt your Republics and absolutely melt the Conquerors if they are within range and you have IFHE spamming them. On top of that, you have 12 main guns to help compensate for the rather derpy German accuracy. And if you run the stock guns, you get 29-second reload instead of 30. Not really that big of a deal. Kind of needed to help compensate for the fact that despite having the exact same caliber gun as the Montana, you only do 12,700 damage instead of the 13,500 of the Montana. But what you do instead get is high velocity on those guns, ease of use at long range, though you may not be expecting the world's most amount of hits. But if you catch anything broadside, German dispersion will still turn it into very good Swiss cheese. So that, I've basically covered all of the battleships to reasonable detail. So, let's have a look at the destroyers. Let's start with a Kaba, because it's not really a destroyer. But it's classed as one, so it gets matched as one. So, in general, I don't believe the Kaba's going to be that good. Not in saving stars, not in winning. If you want to support destroyer, I guess you can. But if you want to support destroyer, play Minotaur. It's just better. I'll get to that. 50mm of armor plating here means that if you do face even cruiser spamming HE, these plates will resist their HE except for the Hindenburg. But be careful, if the cruiser loads AP and hits you here, you can find yourself in trouble pretty fast. They can fully pen your armor and basically make a mess out of it, put some holes inside of it. Interesting thing to note, these will also auto-deflect every single AP shell from anything in the game. If they impact it at a bad angle, it's going to hit it and bounce right off. Although, of course, that's only at, incredible angles. And if you get unlucky and they hit you here, the shell's going to go here, it's going to go into your ship, and boom, there goes half your health. Your torpedoes are really, really horrible, 6 kilometers, very slow, although they are very devastating in the damage. If you do get caught in a destroyer with one of these things coming at you, 0.6 detectability range. They're basically deep water torpedoes. Sure, they're slow, but they show up in your face and make a big mess out of your ship. On top of that, 4 turrets of 130mm 1936 pattern guns, I think. I actually don't remember the exact name of the guns. I mean, they're called B2Us here, so But hey, still very good guns, good at long range, good at spamming HE, good at spamming AP against broadside targets. These things are your good damage dealers, and they are your primary damage dealers in a Calvados, and you'll need to deal damage with a Calvados to actually keep yourself competitive. And even in spamming damage, you're going to need a lot of time to build up the XP to save your stars, because chances are you're not going to have the highest win rate with one of these things, because it really is not able to contest caps as easily, but a lot of this, of course, depends on the maps you're going to find yourself facing. I pretty much covered the Z52 in all of its glory and all of its capabilities. Quick honorable mention to the AA. Decent AA overall, but you need a fully spec for it, and if an enemy carrier gives a concentrated attack against you, you're still going to find yourself in trouble and likely to die, just simply because the AA of this thing is not, well, it's not defensive AA, so it will not panic their aircraft, and it's not going to wipe something out just instantly, not like, for example, the Garage Revive. Garage Revive's 19mm standard armor everywhere. Also gets reasonably good guns, and that's something you do need to keep in mind, because having good guns means that, you know, you can deal damage at long range. You also have a decent concealment of 6, and that's something that the Calvados doesn't get. I think this is a full concealment carb of 7.9, so you are fast to make up for it, so if you do have a full concealment spec, you can, in theory, just run down an enemy destroyer, insert gun in face, and try to kill them. You can also attempt to rush early game positions and take control over them, to make it difficult for the enemy to get to them, especially if they take their time in getting there to begin with. But yes, Garage Revive with its own 130mm guns, 84 DPS at 7.5, multiply that by 4, and if you have manual AA, then stick a 2.6 multiplied on top of that, and you all of a sudden get a lot of AA potential on these guns. These ones also get multiplied by 4, and if you click on the plane, another 1.3 multiplier on top of them. That gives you a lot of potential DPS, and if you have the AA defensive upgrade for additional active time on them, your AA time goes up to 36 seconds, which is almost that of a cruiser, giving you a lot of DPS potential to wipe out planes, wipe out squadrons, and generally make life difficult for carriers that try to go for you. Your torpedoes are not bad, they're not great, 10 kilometers, and rather potato damage. They're basically the same as that of the Z52, with a major difference of 130-second loading time compared to 90 seconds loading time. That is a huge difference. The difference in the amount of torpedoes that you can spam and how often you can spam them really could be the difference between a win or a defeat. Granted, Z52 has 4 tube launchers, you get 5, which is in and of its own an advantage, because 1, it boosts your alpha damage, but 2, your spread is also slightly better. 4 tube launchers have really awkward spreads, especially the Japanese ones. So the Shimmy doesn't really get much love. Your main advantage is in the rear-facing guns, and you're still a reasonably quick ship, which means that you can get to and from places rather fast. Equally, you can get yourself into trouble rather fast, but these guns at least make up a good sizable portion of your rear armor profile, so if you're running away, these guns can help you absorb some damage. On top of getting these torpedoes, check that damage out. These things are basically nukes, 23,767 damage over 15 torpedoes in one wave over 3 launchers, and the 5 tube launchers, meaning they don't get the super awkward spread of things like Yugumo Kagedo in the line before it. Just to be careful, these things do have a tendency to jam, especially if you take the torpedo reload boost upgrade. You kind of need to try to stop them from getting jammed, because the reload on these things, I mean, look at it. 130 seconds, 30 seconds with upgrade, without the captain, I think it goes down to basically 120 with a captain on it. So it's still a rather long torpedo reload, but the alpha damage is sick. If you do take these torpedoes, even with the kind of awkward 1.7 detectability, I mean, there's always the stock ones, which have this amazing 2.5 kilometer detectability range. I mean, don't use 20k torps, PS. Other than that, Shimi is just a torpedo boat. Your guns are definitely not bad, and if you can get them down to 4.5 second reload. In a kiting position, these guns are not to be messed with, but they're generally not considered to be the world's best guns. They're actually quite easy to use. The shell velocity is fast enough. Compare that to something like a gearing, where the shells going to the moon beyond and then returning. Speaking of gearings, one of your major advantages is your armor in a destroyer fight. 21mm is enough to resist anything short of a 130mm gun, aka the Russians. If you're not a Russian destroyer, you don't want to be shooting the gearing here. You want to hit it here or anywhere else. You still have 20 millimeters of main gun turret armor. I mean, it's not really that important, but in a frontal rushdown, you still have a pretty sizable area of gun that covers the side of your ship. But you're a much taller ship and a much bigger ship. Compare that to the Z52's profile, for example. It's not that much of a difference, but drop it down to shimmy, and suddenly you try to look at the shimmy from behind as it's running away from you. Suddenly, that difference, in profile is quite a significant change in the amount of damage you can potentially deal to it in terms of your shells. And US shells aren't known for being the most accurate; they just have a tendency to land within the central areas of your ship, of your aim, in fact. The major thing of the gearing is that you get a jack-of-all-trades ship. You have very fast rate of fire on the guns, you have decent enough torpedoes, 16.5 kilometer range, you can knock it down to 13.5 with torpedo acceleration, giving you the 71 knot speed to make these things incredibly deadly. The spotting is average on the torpedoes, 1.4, same as the Z52. On top of that, you also get, more importantly, your defensive AA as an option in case there are carriers. And if there's carriers, I definitely suggest gearing over Z52, just because you can defend yourself, you can defend your team, and in general be a nuisance to an enemy aircraft carrier player, and still also be able to support your surface fleet much stronger than the Grozhevai, even though the Grozhevai almost doubles your heavy autocannon in DPS. If you do get shot by AT or the carrier drops AT bombs on you and you don't want to defensive them, killing some of this means that, well, your dual purpose, I think, is 75, and your Bofors amount to 74. The DPS isn't really that major of a difference anymore. You also get the 130-second active smoke time. That's over 2 minutes of smoke with 144 seconds of cooldown, which means that you don't have to spend too much time outside of a smoke screen or without it, especially if you fully spec it with Jack of all trades and your high caliber single. This is the fastest cooldown on the smoke you can get for the 130-second smoke. And also the long deployment time means that you can make a rather big smoke blob to hide inside of, making a much bigger target for the enemy team to have to torpedo, and therefore lower chances of your team taking torpedoes and dying near them, and much more utility with the smoke screen for things like your radar cruise just to make full use out of. Just do be careful of your detectability after firing main guns in smoke, especially if you're in a Moskva. That does amount to a rather awkward number of, I think, 11.7. Maybe we can just check it right here. Nope, 12.7. So you cannot even radar in the smoke. Unlike every other cruiser with radar, take for example the Des Moines, I think it's 8.2 and 9.9 kilometer radar, which means you get spotted inside of the smoke screen firing. You mash that radar button, and you can give them, what is that? 9 barrels each, giving 5.5 reasons per minute for them to be somewhere else. So I think that covers all the destroyers except for the Yue Yang. I don't think I've missed any at this point. Baguettes don't get any. Yue Yang is basically a Fletcher hull with gearing gun mounts. The gearing AA, but you don't get the option to hit mount defensive. And your torpedoes cannot hit destroyers, although they are definitely very good torpedoes. They're basically the gearing torpedoes with a little bit more speed at the cost of range, and their ability to hit destroyers. Now, ranked battles can very quickly bog down into who gets more destroyer kills, and having torpedoes be able to hit destroyers can be a major thing here. To compensate for that, you actually get radar on a destroyer, so a 7.5 kilometer moving radar that, if you do get spotted yourself, you hit that button, you're going to spot the enemy in return. And with radar upgrade, I think it gives you 28 seconds of radar active time, which is enough for battleships to shoot one salvo at it to take aim properly. And if it's the case of the Republic or the running reload upgrade, then they can potentially snap 2 salvos off on a destroyer, and that's a lot of potential damage against them. Although in randoms and in ranked battles, don't count on people aiming, don't count on people holding their salvos to shoot destroyers. People don't have this kind of discipline. Although perhaps I'll cover this kind of strategy, meta, and things like that in a separate video. This one is mostly to cover the individual performance of the ships, what I can expect from them, what I believe of them. Again, like I've said, feel free to disagree. Do leave me a comment in the comment section below what you think about it, what you want to criticize about my opinions and whatnot. But I believe that being able to torpedo destroyers is more important than having better torpedo concealment against battleships. So personally, that's why I'm going to omit the Yue Yang as a strong pick for Kiaturn as a destroyer. So on to the cruisers. My honorable mention definitely goes to the Minotaur with the concealment of 8.9 and a 9.9 kilometer 56 seconds of "hey, you're being spotted, prepare to be colonized" button means that if you do catch an enemy destroyer broadside on, or if you get spotted, you can push the button and you're guaranteed to spot whatever spotted you back in return. On top of that, you get incredibly powerful anti-aircraft, 148 at 8.6. You can't spot target yourself at that range, you can only spot at 8. On top of a very strong battery of 3-inch 70s on this ship. Just be careful. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, and on the other side, 5, 6, 7, 8. One set of HE and half of them are gone. One set of bombs and all of them are gone. Do be aware of that. But definitely you can make a mess out of tier 10 aircraft. You can make a mess out of the aircraft carriers, ruin their day, and especially if you're sitting inside of a smokescreen. You're also not that slow. 35.2 knots is not bad at all. Combine that with the fact that you also get 2 launches of 4 torpedoes per side. The torpedoes aren't super amazing, they're not bad at all. Almost 17,000 damage with 10 kilometer range. Very good reload of 96. That's like 6 seconds worse than that of a Z52. And the most important thing to note, you have them on both sides with reasonably good firing angles on both sides. Meaning you can, launch torpedoes, turn the ship around, launch the other side of torpedoes, and make them think you're a torpedo reload. Yugumo, except you can't because, no tier 9s, otherwise everyone would be playing USS Balance. I mean, granted that's a tier 11, but jokes aside, I digress. Main battery, you do need to be careful though, despite having very good DPM, almost the same reload as the gearing. You don't have super high penetration to deal with cruiser citadels at medium to long range, just forget about that. And if an enemy destroyer angles, you don't have HE, so you can't actually punish them for it. Your armor is also very weak. 16mm of armor means that basically any AP shell from a battleship that hits you and any AP shell that hits you from a baguette is just going to auto-lol pen you and attempt to deal damage, most likely in full penetration damage if you get caught angled. If you get caught broadside, you see all of that yellow on the side? Yeah, it's all citadels. If you get caught broadside, you're having a bad day. To compensate for that, at least you get the super heal, and you really need that super heal because without it, well, if you can't replace your ship, you're having a really, really bad time. So the other cruisers, the Moskva, I mean, people say jokingly that it's a battleship. It's a much more static piece, and in a static meta, I don't think this is going to be too bad. What it does bring to the field is a very high amount of hit points for a cruiser. Remember, this is tier 10. It gets matched as a cruiser, and you're going to have equal ship classes on the opposing team, meaning that if they have low HP cruisers, this additional health bar, and of course the really good armor overall, on top of 50mm of deck. That is the same as the Grosse Kurfürst, ladies and gentlemen. This will resist all HE in the game, except for that of Hindenburg. You just have a major downside though. This superstructure basically has, more health on your ship. So it's almost unsaturated. You almost cannot saturate the superstructure around, and I guess it's a way to compensate and balance out the 50mm deck. But if you just target this, you're almost just going to keep doing full damage to it, keep doing lots of damage to it, and really just ruin the day of a Moskva. So even if you're an Incendio or a Baguette or any other cruiser, and you can't pen this 50mm deck, don't despair to shoot it in the superstructure, and you'll still be doing full damage. Other than that, this is main Citadel armor plate of 155mm. All destroyers except Z52 at tier 10 can penetrate that, they just need to get close enough. I think most destroyers can do it at 2 kilometers. Shimmy can do it. Shimmy gearing can do it at 2.5. I think Shimmy's almost down to 2.4. Gearing's almost up to 2.6. I think the Khabarovsk and Grozhevai can do it around about 2.8. Z52 can't do it at all, so don't try. So yeah, it's a little bit of a interesting trivia about the Moskva's armor layout. You can only do in the upper plate. The lower plate is still the same thickness. However, let's hide it. Behind that is the very, very well sloped Citadel main area, 40mm there slope, 110mm slope behind here. You land an AP shell through the 155mm of plating there, and then have to go through 110 at this kind of an angle on top of your fall of shot. A lot of ships are going to struggle with that, although your chances are you'll still be getting full penetration damage. You need to hit it over here where it's only 40mm and the angle isn't as steep. Land a shell behind there as a cruiser or a battleship, you'll still be doing the Citadel worth of damage. But in general, you want to fall the shells just on the upper plate behind that so you can get the full Citadel damage, because all this is Citadel and it's a rather large target. The more interesting thing about the armor is that it is 27mm basically everywhere. except for the main deck, which means that if you do get caught angled like this, every single battleship hits you here or here, they're going to lull pen you. Of course, if they hit your deck, you need the 431mm of the Baguette and above, basically meaning Baguette and the Yamato will lull pen these cruisers, and that's actually a very interesting advantage of the Baguette tier 10 battleship, in that the guns will lull pen the Zhao, lull pen the Des Moines, I believe even the Hindenburg, and the Henri armor, they'll just go right through it with the AP shells. I think I've covered the Des Moines in good enough detail. Oh, one little thing to note, 7% torpedo balls. You do not want to be taking torpedoes in this thing. Speaking of torpedoes, the Zhao is the tier 10 cruiser with the highest survivability against the torpedoes that isn't like super big. I mean, it doesn't get the health to make up for it. 19 there, like Moskva gets 28, but most people don't really consider it a cruiser. It's a large cruiser, and some even go to the point of saying it's a battleship. I mean, it is in a way a large cruiser, and we look at the Baguette here. Let me just have a quick look at the torpedo bulge here. I think it's also 19mm, the same as the Zhao. So, despite only having 40,000 health, the effective torpedo protection on that bulge is not bad at all. And on top of that, you get a very solid maneuverability. Remember, this is without the upgrades. If you do want to go full rudder shift on this ship, if we take this and go for rudder shift over here, let's just quickly swap this over. Have a look at that, 6.1 seconds. That is basically Carbados levels. Like, look at that, 8.9. Of course, again, that's not running double rudder shift. It's only running single rudder shift. Yep, that's right. Zhao has better rudder shift than a destroyer, confirmed. Also, you do get the 9.7 concealment with really accurate guns that have very high alpha, especially on the HE. Look at that, 3,400 HE damage. Like, that's the HE damage of some of the lower tier battleships firing much bigger guns. Japanese HE do get more damage compared to their peers. And they're also accurate with very fast velocity, meaning that if you do get within 10 kilometers of a destroyer, they get spotted by your allied destroyers. You can make a good number on the health bar. If you get lucky, you can hit them for 8,000 damage. Each individual HE shell non-saturated does 1,122 damage. Do the math. That stacks up really, really fast. And with a reload of 13.7 base means that every 13 and a bit seconds, you can be doing the same amount of damage as a good battleship salvo every 30 against destroyers. On top of that, 30mm of armor means that Montanas will just auto-deflect if they hit these platings at obscure angles. And your anti-aircraft is not too shabby at all. 7.2 kilometer range on these guns, fully spec. Currently, this is a Clan Battles, no carrier spec, but this AA is not bad at all. Just to be careful, because you do have these Bofors guns, which have 3.5 kilometers, and the rest of your AA are basically all in your Type 96-25s, which have different range, but do combine into the same aura. You don't actually get a short range aura, so all of these guns, all four of these different DPSs split over 3 different ranges, all combined with a modifier of X3, 3 times damage per second, for their AA when defensive AA is up, and a spec Zhao's AA is nothing to scoff at. It will take down tier 10 planes, and if you full respect for it, rather respectively as well. I do have a video on that on my channel. You can see how fast Zhao shred planes. I got 105 planes shot down in my Zhao against an enemy midway. Other than that, consumables are pretty standard, nothing really too interesting about it. You just have a very, very good platform, very good kiter, along with incredibly good HE damage output. And if anything wants to get close, these are F3s. 10 of these per side, the damage amounts to over 200,000 damage in the side. Even a Yamato is going to have a hard time surviving a full face of these planted into its belt. Even a Yamato is going to find itself likely going down at that point. And that, with the cruisers, I believe, covers half of them. Gone over the Des Moines, gone over the Moskva. I don't think I've done the Hindenburg or the... I actually don't think I've done the Baguette yet. Let's have a look at the Hindenburg. You get a very solid anti-aircraft package. The 2cm guns, no one really cares about. They don't combine for your defensive AA. This is really where it's at. 200 DPS for your 5.5s at 5 kilometers. Your dual-purpose guns actually have less range at 4.5. They are the 10.5 centimeter guns after all. But they do push out a respectable 133 DPS. Another interesting thing to note about the Hindenburg is 40mm of plating here, no AP shell in the game. Lol pens that. Is your bow on? Tier 10, it doesn't matter. All the battleships just go clean through that. However, this plating will not be lol pens. If you angle like this 40mm plate will protect your Citadel of warship. Even if they lol pen this, the shell's going to go in one end and right out the other for one of a pen. Otherwise, you do actually get a turtle back. It's 110 here, and if we hide that and the Citadel, you can see that it's actually no, it's not really a full turtle back, but like it's basically 60 millimeters of deck plating on top of that. You can see that plating here as well with a 45 on the engineering, but it's a little bit of extra armor. But it's not really gonna save you. Don't count on it saving you. If you do get caught broadside, you're still easily gonna find yourself getting screwed over. The 30mm of belt plating, 30mm of deck plating, just like that of the Zhao, gonna auto-deflect anything short of the Baguette battleships. So you have decent AA, decent package overall. Just be careful, you're not a fast ship at all. You're not the world's most maneuverable ship. You're not the world's most concealable ship. But you do get some pretty solid firepower. Your HE shells are some of the weaker for their caliber, though you do make up for the rate of fire and a rather decent fire chance as well. Something I didn't mention with the Zhao, it's 21% base, if I remember my numbers correctly. I'm doing all of this without a script. 21% base, or is it with signals? It's with signals, but then it's 19% base. Doing all of this without a script, without having read the numbers or prepared this video in any way, shape, or form, does mean that I'm probably going to make mistakes. And this video has been dragging on for quite a while now. But otherwise, a good general purpose package. I think it's either 12.8 or 13.2 kilometer surface detectability range standard, so you do need to play around that. And the Baguette, chances are I don't think it's going to see that much use. Baguette, not really that popular in randoms. I don't think it's going to be that popular in the ranked season either. It's not even super popular in the clan battles in my experience overall. 30mm armor plating means that HE shreds it pretty easily. 25mm bow means it does get lol penned. It's a rather big ship, and it doesn't get super good health to make up for it. But what you do get, well, it's not concealment, what you do get is speed. Maneuverability is not bad on it. You're basically a long-range kind of kiting ship. Long-range main battery with large caliber guns, a lol pen minute for armor, 16mm of plating. 12.3 second reload is not bad. It's not great either, but you basically get the same. You basically get better reload than a Zhao -1 turret, but the Zhao's gun are a lot more usable at long range. Although the penetration is definitely very nice if you do get up close and personal with a battleship. Something like a Yamato, you and the Moskva will absolutely tear right through their armor, where something like a Hindenburg is going to struggle. Something I didn't actually mention with the Hindenburg, it gets very high AP damage for its caliber. It gets 5,900 compared to the Zhao's 5,400 and the Des Moines' 5,000 AP damage. Des Moines makes up in rate of fire. But it loses basically penetration for that instead. I mean, have a look at that, 5.9k on the AP damage. It does, it trades its penetration. It can't Citadel Yamatos. A Zhao and Des Moines will do it at 2 kilometers. They can reliably Citadel Yamato broadside on. This thing, it won't. You're going to have a hard time doing it. So yeah, I believe that's all of the cruisers covered. This video is definitely going to become an hour long. We look at actually, did I cover the battleships? I don't even remember at this point. It's quite a few attempts at recording this. I might actually have just covered all of it. So with that, I'm pretty sure I covered all of it. So with that, I'm going to call this video. It's currently 48 minutes long. For those of you guys that did decide to stick around for the entire thing, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you guys find some use out of it. If you're only stuck for the first 10 minutes for the my top picks, well, you wouldn't be listening to this now, would you? But in general, if you like this kind of content, advanced content as well, I do publish that on this YouTube channel. I'm currently doing a lot of exam preparations, so don't expect any super complicated content. However, I do have a AA workings video in the works, where I explain my impression of the anti-aircraft system and how it works, and what really matters for you guys, the players, to figure out and use to the best of your advantage in your random battles against aircraft carriers. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this. Take care, and I will catch you guys in the next one.